What's it like? What's it like to be around everyone that was in the originals?
Yitabo! It's the mic in front of him or me. It's amazing working around Louise Gold, who is a living legend and a delightful person. No, I mean, what's cool is, we all researched the movie on our own, and we worked, hard to try and pay homage to that, and we had much respect for that. But to have Louise there, an actual source who can tell us, about specific things.
Yeah, you say that, Victor, but Louis, the director, said, what do you remember about... He'd asked me about various things. I couldn't remember a bloody thing. So I was great. I came to it was a whole new world.
In all seriousness, it was a great privilege to work with Louise. No, Dark Crystal, obviously, it was a film that inspired me to become a puppeteer. From a small boy, I used to watch this film over and over again. So to be part of the Dark Crystal, to work with people, to meet people who worked on this incredible film is a blessing in my life, really. And what's so important, I think, is the lineage. And we've spoke about that before, haven't we? And how precious that is to pass on this work. And Brian and Wendy spoke earlier about passing on this skill and this knowledge base and the love for this art. And it is an art, and what could be better to do this in Age of Resistance of following Dark Crystal? It's very precious to be able to live in those footsteps.
Hup, I understood you flew here.
Yeah.
How was the flight? Because we know you don't do well with flying.
Yeah. Food, okay.
Yeah?
Turbulence, not Hup's favorite.
No. Was it meat or fish?
Yeah, it was meat or fish. Hup, not sure.
Hup, what's it like working with Victor? Because I know he can be a bit of a handful.
He's mostly okay. Friendly, but not too friendly.
Are you sure? He's got his hand in some familiar places.
Yeah, knows when to leave a party. Hadn't really put much thought into that.
How did you, Victor? How did you kind of straddle that genius line of comedy with Hup and Muppet behaviour?
Well, kind of you to label it genius comedy. Thank you. I mean, most of it came from the script. There were moments that were really sincere for Hup. There were moments that were funny. When they write he's getting off of, this flying creature and vomiting. Like, you can't, there's really not a whole lot of ways you can play. You know what I mean? We just kind of went back and forth, and I think the podlings kind of lend themselves to that fun kind of puppetry. They're small, they're light, they're cute, and they operate more like hand puppets. So the comedy part of it, I think, was a real natural. What we had to dig a little deeper for was to find the sincerity that was, still believable and earnest and everything. So yeah, I mean, I just said what they wrote on the page, really.
And how did you come about the voice? Because it's a very unique voice for Hup.
So for the first 9 months of shooting, Hup sounded like this. It's a bright moon, it's a bright star. Really different. And then I was told that they didn't like the voice. And that was frightening. And so then they had me try other ones. But they wanted him to sound a little older, and they wanted him to be a little more comedic. They wanted him to be a little funnier. So I auditioned about 7 different voices. They like this one. That sound like you're trying to talk, but there's something in your throat that's very painful. Yeah. That voice.
Get through lots of soothers, lots of lozenges, I'm sure.
Yeah, sometimes.
Well, we go from the very adorable to the very monstrous with Nick Kellington.
Neil! Oh, Nick, sorry. Sorry. My mistake.
Skekmal.
Hello.
Ferocious. You are such a lovely guy. How did you bring about this kind of terrifying performance?
Really, it was down to Louis kind of just saying be as evil.
Beating you.
Be as aggressive, as evil, and just encouraging me to go further and further each take.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Good. And when you're moving around a lot faster than obviously the other Skeksis puppets, were there any times where you were a bit too kind of maybe over-eager, kind of bit of causing a path of destruction, if you will?
No, not really. Literally, the more destruction I caused, the more Louis seemed to like it. Much to sometimes kind of Neil's kind of
spare.
Yeah, like during the sword fights, we were trying to look after each other. I was trying to be gentle with you, and but sell it at the same time. But Louis wasn't quite happy. He just wanted it harder, more aggressive, faster, and basically just said, "Really, just go for them. Just go for them." So. You really took one for the team that day.
There's a shot when Nick runs and picks up Rian, and I think he forgot that my arm was in it. And Skekmal runs across the set, which was probably as long as this room. And I'm like, ooh, my arm, bye-bye, career.
I mean, to be honest, when I'm doing that, I can't even see where Rian is. So if I got him, if I felt what felt like a
something,
I'm going.
I don't know whether it was
going.
Rian.
It's like, whatever it is, I'm going.
Well, I said there must be so much more adrenaline just going through you because it's these bigger body movements. We were talking a little bit earlier about your eclectic range of work that you've done. How do you change those mindsets between?
Generally, it's not a problem because if you're on a gig, you'll be there for a few weeks or a few months or a year or whatever. So you get into that character and you're that character every day. You guys kind of change characters kind of hour to hour. I don't know how you guys do it. But the only time I've ever really had a problem was we were filming Teletubbies. We were inside a home dome and I'm dressed as Dipsy and we're about to go on. And it was a Friday. And that Saturday, I was going to be appearing as Bistan, Space Monkey, at Star Wars Celebration. And I'd not been in Bistan for about 9 months. So I was just trying to, how does Bistan move? What does he do? So naughtily, whilst I was waiting for action, I was thinking about Bistan. And then they called action, and I'm dressed as Dipsy. And I just went... and kind of stormed into the home dome kind of thing. Luckily, we had to go again anyway. It wasn't down to me. But that's the only time that I've ever kind of really got things confused. So.
Whole generation of English children scarred for life.
And it didn't make the series. Don't look out for the shots.
Well, it's fantastic to have extra puppets here as well, Rian and Deet. They look absolutely incredible up close. For those of you that were able to go to the BFI exhibition as well, we got to see, I know Deet was there. Becky, when you're using Deet, how much of yourself are you putting in? And why do you think she's become such a lovable character? Everyone seems to have kind of gravitated towards her ways.
Yeah. I put in as much of myself as I possibly can. There's a lot of my soul in Deet. But I think so much of what's beautiful about her character is her amazing sculpt. Like, just visually, she's not even moving and she's stunning. Yes, I add movement and character, but so much of the work is done for me already, and I just get to jump on that and take it a bit further.
Because you also puppeted Naia as well.
Yes. Naia.
Again, similar with kind of Nick's point of view sometimes, that you're flicking between someone who's very expressive and very kind of innocent and lovable, whereas Naia's quite stoic.
It's hard, stoic, yeah.
Yeah, so how can you kind of change between those two?
I approach it, I'm from an acting background, so I approach it very much that way, and in my mentality I know that I'm Naia now, and Naia walks like this, and then it's like, oh, and then now I'm Deet, and Deet is soft and lovely. So yeah, I think it comes through more for me like as an acting performance as opposed to like technical puppeteering angle, which is another very valid angle. It's just dependent on the person, really.
And a bit like how we've mentioned today, a lot of the puppeteers, just that physical connection allows you to bring out that performance.
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. Neil, dying to know...
What?
Prefer to puppeteer Skeksis or Gelfling? Because Skekok, for me, is actually kind of who I personally resonate with. I'm an English teacher, so kind of words and language. Absolutely loved that he had that spotlight, that performance I thought was killer. So sad. You say it, please. You say it, please. So sad.
Do it, Neil, do it. Sad? So sad.
Nice.
English teacher.
Do your special dance, Neil, when
He
you
didn't
talk.
have a special. A special itch, but not a special.
Only when he was wearing the bath cap, right, Neil? Yeah.
What was your question? I've forgotten.
Gelfling and Skeksis, do you have a preference in who you were puppeteering, or?
Well, they're both so different, and they are different parts of your personality. So Rian was very much the hero, and he was in a very different, timbre of performance. Everything was smaller. There was so much more emotion with Rian, so many serious things, and then there was all the action to do with him, which is such hard work with a puppet. I mean, getting your head around doing a sword fight with a Gelfling as a puppeteer, watching a monitor. And as a puppeteer, you want to watch where your marks are going, where the sword's going. But then you look at the monitor and you go, well, Rian isn't even looking at the sword. So then you realise it's the puppet's still got to maintain the eye line with the character. And then also do the sword fight and hit your mark. So he was just technically very hard to do, and the emotion and the acting. But the scroll keeper was just completely different. That's another side of your personality. That's the darker place where you can go. That's where the fun lies. And you can do other things with the Skeksis. I mean, it was a gift to play a Skeksis. And to do his voice was a blessing.
Do more lines, Neil, do more lines.
No, I'm not doing more lines. I can't remember the lines.
Well, for everyone else, it was 4 years ago, but for you, Neil, it was only a couple of months.
I've got a bad memory. Today, I can't remember anything.
One of the key scenes that was monumental and must have been very technically difficult with Age of Resistance was the battle scene at the end. I've read through the making of, just kind of in your own words, how chaotic kind of was that, pulling that off?
It was hell.
Yeah.
Next question.
People ask the difference between how it was 40 years ago and how it was now. The Skeksis had to do so much more. One of the easier things was we had fewer cables. So the monitors, when they worked, didn't have cables. Their heads didn't have cables. But we were required to move about much more on our little monitors. In the old days, we had one picture. Now we had 3 pictures. There were 2 cameras shooting, an A camera and a B camera, and a witness cam, which was showing us where we were in relation to each other. So we had 3 tiny, tiny pictures that we're trying to watch at the same time in the battle as wearing armour and big wing things. It was such fun. It was so hard. It was just so hard. And we had to remember that we only had to do it once. Well, we didn't, because Louis made us do it over and over and over again. But in the end, it's only going to be one time, and that will be there forever. So we want to get it right, but it was bloody hard.
And I think the Skeksis costumes were very heavy anyway.
Yes.
And for the battle, they covered these guys in extra armour. And that extra armour wasn't kind of like plastic painted to look like metal.
It was lead.
A lot of it was metal on massive poles. So you're working against all the leverage as well. All
And
these
huge swords as well. which were
huge
really-
swords. These guys were absolute champions for the battle. They kind of
I cried.
Out of pain, or just...
I cry all the time.
Louise, how was it being obviously on the original, and like we say, these kind of differences in these developments? We talked about the schedule for one, pretty grueling surely, and you just mentioned the cameras as well. Needing to keep that consistency, how did you approach that? How did you kind of keep it in line?
Well, the designs were unbelievably faithful to the original. And we had, for a lot of us, we're doing new characters. So it was from the world, but it was different stories. And all the Skeksis were a lot younger. So they had much more dialogue. They were more physically adept. The film is set further on when they're more decayed and more, less verbal. They were very verbal, lots of dialogue, which we didn't have in the original. So it was great exploring the world further back.
Yeah, just fleshing it out.
Yeah.
How did you? One of the things I absolutely love that's been released, I'm so grateful for it, is the blooper reel that came out.
Neil, sing song from the blooper reel.
No, Neil's not singing.
One of the lines I remember is, "Oh, I'm looking the other way again," like you were saying earlier. Keep picking that out. Was it really hard with Louis' fantastic kind of dynamic style of filming? Kind of really brought it fresh for you, and kind of how did you get to grips with that?
We never did, because Louis never got to grips with the fact that shooting with 2 cameras is virtually impossible for a puppet. Yeah. You're looking at 2 pictures, you can only focus on one. He said, don't worry, I will find the shot. Why aren't you looking at my camera? Because we told you we can't look at 2 cameras. So we never got to grips with that. It was really, really difficult.
I think you pulled it off fine. I think it looks fantastic myself. I'd like to know your feelings more, Victor, on Hup, and kind of how proud you were when you had that moment of him finally becoming a paladin and reaching his goal.
Well, see, I don't know if he really became a paladin, because, the All Maudra says, don't stand on. There's no time to stand on ceremony. Stand by my side, raise your spoon, something. So, did he become a paladin?
Yes, I'm the All Maudra. Yes.
Yeah. Official. It's official.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
Wait, Louise, it just so happens. In no way planned, I assure you. This is my own personal spoon that Hup has thankfully signed for me. Would you perhaps now officially make it official and knight Sir Hup for us?
Oh boy. Also, could you make Deet love me?
Yeah.
Forget it, baby. Hup, I grant you this spoon. You are now a paladin.
Oh,
Sir
thank
Hup.
you. I have 2 arms and I'm like, ow, Louise!
There we go.
Why? This great honor, All Maudra Louise. Why Hup Spoon say to Tobias, paddling
I'm
Justice?
sorry.
Yeah.
Someone else.
I'm going to need that back. Thanks. Also, one part of the story that seems to be kind of unresolved, which is good in a way, because we're all hoping for a season 2, right, guys? I love that moment where Hup picks up Law's core, and I'm wondering, does he just take him on a joyride across the Crystal Desert, or what do we think is going to happen there?
I mean, yeah, there's so many possibilities, and what happens to Deet and Brienne, and so, yeah, I guess there's only one way really to find it, to find out. But yeah, I mean, I think in early versions of the story, the series, Hup went to the battle with the Gelfling, and then they came up with a different storyline for him. So I think the idea is that he would rejoin them at some point, and I think that was a smart way for him to be able to get there.
To kind of keep him out of the picture almost, to bring about something else. Because it's a shame, because yes, he is now officially a paladin, but he never got his kind of moment to prove his battle worthiness, did he?
Yeah.
So,
yeah. Hopefully, season 2 when we'll do it.
Yeah. Becky, following on from that note and your comments earlier about bringing in your performance, how did you feel about Deet kind of following down that dark path of sacrifice?
First of all, just that scene where Deet gets darkened was so fun to do and really cathartic at that time in filming and the battle and just getting to scream shot after shot. So it was super fun, but also really sad, and I don't know what this means for Deet, for someone who just loves everything and now she can't touch anything or it dies.
Yeah.
And in the script, the last bit of Deet leaving in the script just said the darkening swallows her whole. I didn't know when I was just reading the scripts, I was like, is she dead? And so, I mean, I don't know what's going to happen to her. I mean, we've obviously seen the prophecy of her on the Skeksis throne.
Yeah, what's that all about?
I don't know, but it looks cool, so I want to do that.
Queen Henderson. How did you feel about the dynamic with Deet and Rian? Because lots of people seem to wonder, Rian's like, oh, who's Mira?
Yeah, right. Is that your dead girlfriend in your pocket, or are you just...
The batteries have gone out.
I think it's really nice that they don't delve into that. I think it's a nice thing maybe to tease, just like Jen and Kira didn't need to be this couple. It wasn't like a romance story. Deet's got a lot on her plate. She's saving the planet. She doesn't need to be tied down by Gelfling right now. No, I think it's really sweet, and I like there's little flickers of chemistry there, but I also like that they don't divulge into it. I think that's also important.
Yeah, because there's always been that sheen of innocence with the Gelflings, I think. You've had the darker elements that always surround them. So,
yes.
Yeah, absolutely. And Age of Resistance is dark, from some very dark moments. Skektek having his eye peeper beetled out and many other moments.
You should have seen it before it got censored. it was much worse.
There's quite a lot of cut out, was there?
It was absolutely horrific, and they took out quite a bit of it.
Well, what do you think about that, though? Because we have these story arcs that are going through, and it's quite good because they do relate to the kind of almost different age groups, as it were. Do you think it should have maybe had that stronger, darker message, or how do you think it worked out that way?
I think it has. I think it's very dark. When Celadon is with the Skeksis and it's horrible. It's really upsetting, and the Gourmand drags her off. I found that very dark, and the eye.
Also, when the Gourmand starts peeing and there are 3 streams, that was super dark. That was really.
I just had a lot to drink that day. I think it's very dark.
Yeah.
I think it's very dark.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. With those kind of dark images, then Nick. At one point, Skekmal is, he's hung up in his wires. And you're surrounded kind of visually as a live action performer. You're looking and you're surrounded by this. What was that like?
That was wonderful.
Yeah.
That was my very first day on set, the very first thing that I shot. And I just remember hanging there. Luckily, didn't have to do anything, so I could just enjoy the show. And then again, all these guys in Skeksis costumes just coming at me with paintbrushes. And again, I can see a little bit out of Skekmal's neck. And so I was just enjoying the show, kind of going, this is wonderful. I'm so lucky. And a massive smile on my face, and I could just enjoy it. It was incredible. So.
Awesome.
And also, we're all like dying and grunting in these costumes, and Nick is in better shape than all of us anyway, but he's inside there just like laying back. It was a good first day.
So with the Skeksis, they did explore them a lot more, as you said, Louise. Lots more dialogue from them. Yes, they are younger, they're more capable, and we learn a little bit more about their ways. And also, I think they were kind of expressed much more in their personalities a lot more. And the female side started to come out a lot clearer than the originals.
Well, Jim, I gather, had always thought they were ambiguous in their sexuality. And we had 3 women performing the Skeksis. Alice, Deneen, Helena, Smee, and me were Skeksis. So there was feminine. So the elements of the Skeksis, whether or not you could tell who was being operated, the voices, Awkwafina did Helena's one, Alice did her own one, Harvey Firestein did mine. So, yeah, all these differences come through, but we weren't deliberately thinking, oh, mine's a girl.
No.
The Gourmand is the Gourmand and is a Skeksis of ambivalent sexuality.
Yeah. With potentially 3, we won't go into that.
3, yeah.
And obviously there's so much more of a stronger female presence in Age of Resistance because the Gelfling are thriving, and we have All Maudras.
So many more female
Maudras.
puppeteers, which was fantastic, because on the film, I don't know if I was the only... I may have been the only one. I don't want to say that in case I was the only woman. But we had sort of almost equal numbers on this. And Lisa Henson was very, very strongly wanted a female presence. And God knows the women proved themselves equally as strong and able as the men. And originally, one of the things that stopped there being more women was the height thing, because all the sets were designed around Jim and Frank, who were very tall. And now there are many more shorter puppeteers. I don't think this is a good idea myself.
Where are they?
Yeah. But it meant that it's much more equal opportunities, and the women proved themselves as strong, as capable, and it brought a whole other element to it, which I think is fantastic.
Oh, absolutely. So much more depth and range, completely. What are some of your favourite key scenes, with it being relatively fresh in your minds? Let's go down the line. What was one of your favourite scenes to do?
I love doing the scene where Hup starts crying because he is worried that he can't take care of Deet. He's worried he can't protect Deet from the hunter. That was just a fun, sort of deep scene to play.
Almost like that realisation of fear for him, wasn't it? That he kind of, can I do this? Can I look after? I want to be a paladin, but...
Right, and for him, it's not a fear of failure or a fear of the Skeksis. I think he just really loves, Deet so much and wants to protect her so much. The idea of failing at that, I think, is just, such a sad thing. And podlings they're simple people, so their emotions are big. When they're sad, they're really sad. So, yeah, that was a fun one.
Nick?
Well, I love doing all the action, obviously, but I think one of my favourite scenes with Skekmal was when he opens the episode and the shot's spinning round and round and round, and he has that conversation with the Chamberlain, and he's got Rian by his neck upside down.
Your trophies.
But because it was so beautiful, that set, the way it was shot, the way it was lit, it looked beautiful in the studio. But when I saw it on the monitor, it totally blew my mind of how beautiful this series was going to be. So that really sticks out in my head, kind of. And then I was kind of laughing because you were hanging upside down all day. Puppeteering upside
you hit me in the face with your tail.
Yeah.
You laugh at me hanging off a crane.
Yeah, there's a pattern developing. But yeah, so that one.
Maybe you're not a very nice guy after all.
He likes any scene I'm being tortured in.
I just want to apologise. I just wiped Kathy Mullen from History, who was an extraordinary... She was absolutely phenomenal as Kira in the film, and I was part of the Kira team. But her sensitivity as a performer for Kira is absolutely beautiful, exquisite work. I'm so sorry, Kathy. What she did was phenomenal in the first film. So...
What was one of your favourite moments from Age of Resistance?
Anything I was in was brilliant. No, I loved Maudra Argot because a bit like Hup, she was a lovely puppet to work. And so many of them were great but painful, hideous. Maudra Argot was a lovely puppet. I was also doing the voice, so that makes it a fuller experience. So I loved her.
Yeah, she has some great moments. You can tell that you're enjoying yourself when you're performing her, absolutely. Yeah. Neil?
My favourite scene was, if there's got to be one, it would be with Rian when he goes to see his Maudra Farah, to pleads with her, basically to tell her the truth, tell her what's happening. And he walks into an amazing set with the chandeliers, and when Ordon comes in and he realises his father doesn't believe him, that whole scene was such a big emotional scene in that. It's a roller coaster of where he is, his morning mirror, he's trying to fill everybody in, no one believes him. His father comes in, "Father, you'll believe me." He doesn't believe him. And then he goes into a sword fight. And then and it's interesting watching it back and looking at the emotional journey he goes through within that it's a short scene really, but he does so much in that. And on a personal level, Dave Goals and Louise Gold, these guys, their work inspired me to do what I did. That day was the first day I ever met Dave Goals. He was sat performing a fizz gig about as far as Rian is from me there. So to be in the presence of someone who inspired me, I can't get my head around how that was. I felt sick because I knew I'm going to meet someone who put me where I am.
Yeah.
And it was just so, on one level I was trying to do all the acting, remember all the words, do all the action, but then there's Dave, there's Louise, from The Muppet Show, from Dark Crystal, and I've just got to do this great big enormous scene. And it's a day, days I will never forget. very special.
I'm sure there are going to be some puppeteers someday that are going to come and join the ranks and feel exactly the same way about yourself. Sure there will
I'm
be.
still working.
Sure, you will be working. You will be working.
I have loads of scenes that I love and all for different reasons. Probably one of the ones that I enjoyed performing the most, and it was really near the start of filming when I was still found working with all of these amazing, really experienced puppeteers, really overwhelming, and had that sense of like, well, I don't deserve to be here. And it's, especially when you're doing scenes and like moving through forests, everything's very overwhelming. But there was a Deet scene from the first episode where she's just in the little cot and she's woken up recovering with her broken wing, and there was a stream of things earlier that day and it snowed, and I got stuck and couldn't get into work. So then I arrived in late and they just shoved me right into the hole, and the hole wasn't cut big enough, and I was like really crushed, and there was no time to cut it bigger. And then someone handed me in like a breakfast bagel and I spilled ketchup all down myself, and then my assistant came in and was like, why does it smell like ketchup? And but that scene, I know, and it was really awful and cramped, but it was like totally by myself because I was just surrounded by styrofoam and whatever, and had my little monitor, and I was able to just be totally still, and like was the first time it was just felt like me and Deet, and I was able just to totally focus in on that performance, and I actually really loved that scene. It's really hard when you're watching yourself back and you're fixing everything in your head and you're like, no, move the head slightly like this, but that scene, like, I'm really proud of.
Nice, yeah, very personal moment there, absolutely. Final question then for you wonderful people. Would you happily do it again?
Happily.
No, I think, yeah, man, it was amazing. Look, it was ridiculous and epic to be a part of those 10 episodes. For all of us that worked on it, we were such fans of the original. We owe such a debt to all these other folks who made that original movie, and so it seemed like an impossible dream to make those 10 episodes. It feels like greedy to wish for more, but if the money was right, yeah, I'd do it.
Just yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
absolutely. Yeah. Lovely.
If I can still get in as Skeksis, I can still do it 40 years on, so who knows?
Absolutely.
Yes.
I need to know what happens to Deet.
As do we all. Thank you very much.
I want to say something.
Oh.
When I came here today, I was thrilled about seeing all my friends that I love. I've known these people 40-odd years, newer friends. I love them. And that was very special, and that was one of the big reasons I wanted to be here. But to meet all you guys is such an honor, and to see your art and what this has meant to you has just been extraordinary, and I thank you and I honor you for your love for this and your support and your creativity, and you go out there and take this on and do your projects and take the love that Jim had that put into this and use it for your stuff and for the world, just as people. Thank you so much for coming today. It means so much.
Thank you.
Now, fuck off.
Beccy Henderson, Nick Kellington, Neil Sterenberg, and Beccy Henderson.